This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
Showcasing the work of Otago Southland writers. I'm Beverly Martens. Join me for news and interviews with local writers on the second Wednesday of every month from noon till 1 and replayed the following Sunday at 1 p.m. Write On is brought to you by the Otago Southland branch of the New Zealand Society of Authors and kindly supported by the great team at the University Bookshop.
What do you want to be when you grow up? They say you are what you read, and the University Bookshop can help you be whoever you want to be. Do you want to be an athlete? Then sit down with an inspiring sports biography. Do you fancy yourself as a detective? We have a grisly lineup of murder mysteries waiting just for you. Do you aspire to be the world's greatest chef? We have cookbooks to tantalise your taste buds. Do you want to celebrate your inner child? Play up in our fabulous children's room. The University Bookshop, helping you decide what you want to be when you grow up.
Hi, I'm Beverly Martens, and this month, hallelujah, it's Writing Men. Yes, indeed. This month's show is all about the guys, and I'm pleased to redress the gender balance that I seem to have been talking to women writers all year, and in this month's show, it's all about the guys. So we've got two male writers that I'm talking to. One's a short story writer and the other's a writer-illustrator, and we're talking about their body of work and also their, let's call them hapless male characters. So first up, it's Dunedin short story writer Breton Dukes, whom I spoke to a couple of days ago about his body of work and the exciting news about him being awarded one of the Surrey Hotel residencies. So I'd like to welcome Breton Dukes to the studio. Really great to see you, Breton. And first of all, congratulations on the Surrey Hotel residency. That's fantastic, because I know there was a pretty strong field there. Tell us what it means, what you'll be doing, when you'll be doing it.
Yeah, thank you. And nice to see you too, Beverly. It's what's going to give me is 4 nights accommodation in Auckland at the Surrey Hotel. Yeah, where I guess I'll get 4 days of just pure writing time, which is a lot for me. I've got 3 young kids, so it's the time that means the most to me. And realistically, 4 nights away from the family is about as much as I could get from my wife. So it's going to be really good. And my plan is to work on the second draft of a novel-length project I'm working on. I'm a bit reluctant yet to call it a novel because that's feels like it's...
Is that the one with the working title, The Idea of Love? Or
yeah,
is that
that's it.
Sort of changed a bit since?
I like the title, and I think it kind of works at the moment, so that's probably the title. But I've got a lot of work to do on it. I've got a first draft complete, which has a lot of gaps and a lot of issues. So the Surrey residency will give me a good chance to get stuck into a second draft.
Excellent. Do you know when you'll be
I'm going to go up in early December.
Oh, so you're getting right into it.
Yeah. There was a time frame on which to get up there. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, I just wanted to get up there as soon as I could. Yeah. Great.
Well, we look forward to seeing how that all pans out in the future. Now, you've already written 3 terrific short story collections, Breton. Bird North back in 2011, Empty Bones 2014, and my personal favourite, and I think a lot of people's personal favourite, is What Sort of Man, which was sort of launched kind of virtually, wasn't it? Because it was 2020, and I think you sort of did it almost virtually at Wolf Bar.
Yeah, wow, yeah. Steve Bronius kindly sort of did a launch via his website, Newsroom. But it was a shame not to do it in person because I was really pleased with that book, and I was looking forward to sort of having a party and, yeah. But anyway, yes.
Just circumstances of the
That's right.
of the time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Those stories, and some of your other stories too, they're quite sparse, but they're also very intense and potent, someone described it. And I thought that was a really good, because there's sort of something always simmering below the surface. And one of my personal favourites, I think it's the title story in What Kind of Man is, What Sort of Man, sorry, is the one with Carl and Evan, the carer, and there's just something about hapless, really, in a lot of your characters. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. I guess that book particularly had men who were kind of struggling to live up to the masculine ideal that we maybe used to have in New Zealand, still have to some degree, I guess. And I guess it was just a matter of sort of putting these men into situations where they were forced to cope, forced to look at themselves and who they were, and creating tension and drama from there.
But in very relatable situations, I'm thinking of Meatpack, for example, that kind of undertone that's often found in a public bar. I mean, I grew up in a small town, that vibe was around.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I just write what I know and what I've experienced in the places I've been in New Zealand, and especially in short stories, I think what you're really wanting to do is ratchet up the tension more and more so that the reader really gets dragged under with the content of the story.
And the kind of suspense thing of, oh God, how's it going to,
Yeah. That's what you want the reader thinking. What the hell's going to happen?
And I'm not sure it's going to be pretty.
Yeah, I guess that would be something that I definitely keep in mind when I'm writing. Yeah.
Now, you've had, I don't know if I should couch it in these terms, but you've had kind of let's say a checkered career in terms of all the different jobs that you have done to sustain yourself, your family and your writing.
Yep.
What, I know some of them, you worked in a call centre for a long time. I think you do cook in a bar now, is that? And I think that's the kind of, I think that's the job that your new novel protagonist may have.
Yes.
I think, have you been a carer? Or?
Yes, I've done that as well, yeah.
So and there's more I don't know about. Is there any that you can say, well, that was the richest writing vein of material, or have they all just kind of contributed?
No, nothing stands out. I guess in a job you get to know the world. And as a writer, what you're really needing is a good understanding of the world that you're setting your characters in. So I think whatever job that I've done, I've used that in different stories.
So it's almost been the settings that have been the most important thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
And usually men as main characters. Not me, but I think as a writer you're just sort of exaggerating characteristics of yourself or people that you know really well. And then, like I said, just trying to create tension, menace, humour. That's kind of my process, especially with short stories. The novel thing that I'm working on, the main character cooks in a bar. He has kids like I do. And again, it's just a matter of exaggerating those situations and creating drama from there.
I think even just that with the sort of shift work and drunk patrons are going to kind of sort of build on that too. You're sort of juggling lots of things at once.
And the thing I'm doing at the moment, yes, it's set in the kitchen, and what happens to the guy is he comes in a bit unprepared for a shift. Tons of people suddenly arrive at the bar and start ordering food, and he hasn't got all the prep done. So it's quite an easy way to create tension and drama. That's not happened to me. I probably never will. But in fiction anyway, you're really looking to exaggerate situations.
Something else I just kind of wanted to sort of talk about is, as well as your jobs, I think your years at Otago Boys High School probably kind of set a scene for you in terms of examining, what it means to be a man. And I really enjoyed that piece you wrote. It was about a particular teacher who had behaved very badly. And so that was sort of kind of exposing that, but the general culture of the times when you were sort of saying, look, unless you're into rugby and cricket, how, who were you? And, the derogatory term of fag was just bandied about for everybody in any situation. You're either this or you're a fag.
Yeah.
It was kind of quite a dichotomy, or that was the culture of the time. So I think that's probably played quite a part in your writing.
Yeah. And so I wrote that essay, I'd say 2 years ago now, in response to a teacher who'd been found guilty of sexual assault on numerous students at Otago Boys. And as a result of that essay, I got a lot of emails from old boys, all of whom agreed with the tone of my essay and had many more horrible reports to make about the school. And so I ended up interviewing about 25 old boys over the space, sort of during the COVID time, with in mind to write a non-fiction book about the school and about the teacher. But it got way too intense for me, and I couldn't figure out how to turn it into a book. It didn't really make sense to me to write a non-fiction piece about that. So what's happened is...
You mean in terms of feeling like you really needed to be an investigative journalist and go right into it?
Yeah. I think I started reading Linley Hood's book about the Christchurch
crash. Yeah.
And it just was like, I can't.
Harrowing.
I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I can't write like this. I don't want to dive in so deep. This is not who I am as a person. And around the same time, me and the family got COVID, and it was like, okay, I'm dropping this project cold. I can't do it. But what's happened is that material has turned into rich subject matter for the novel. So, yes, it's about a guy cooking in a bar, but it turns out that he's one of the bullies from his time at high school. And some of the students who he bullied begin to try and track him down and ask him questions. And so that's sort of in the story as well. That's a big part of the
So not to
book.
stretch the metaphor too much, he's kind of put under the grill himself.
He's kind of getting bullied.
Yeah.
And he hasn't faced up to some of the things he's done in the past, and suddenly everything starts happening at once, putting him under a lot of stress and asking, I guess he's asking the question, what did I do back then and what does it make me now, sort of stuff.
Excellent. Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds
So,
really good.
I was disappointed in a way to drop that non-fiction project because part of me had this feeling of responsibility towards the old boys, but I sort of let myself down gently with it in mind that I'd talked to these men. They'd had an hour where we talked and I listened to the harrowing stuff some of them described. Not just about that teacher, but just about the general atmosphere of the school then. I don't know what it's like now. But I feel like I listened to them and that was
and they had been listened to,
yeah,
and that was probably
that's quite a big thing.
I think it's a really big thing.
And the novel does address that stuff. It's just a less direct way.
I mean, it's just so interesting looking back because I'm a little bit older than you, but I look back at the sexism and misogyny that went on and that we put up with in jobs and careers and things, and I just I'm kind of slightly appalled at myself. And I mean, obviously, what was going on at Otago Boys was a pretty open secret, like it was a known thing, and that's the thing. I think you just kind of knew those people, so in my case, you just avoided being in the photocopy room with them, or you left a function before you knew it was going to go in that direction. But that does not make it right. However, now that you are a little bit older, you've kind of said, it was just something I read that you'd said in another interview, that the world I grew up in and understand and could set my characters in no longer exists. So then you were kind of referring to, cataclysmic events like COVID, Ukraine and Trump. And, sorry, my friend, but it's still going on.
Yeah.
So what can you kind of expand on what you meant about that and how that has affected your
that
writing?
was, I said that about the immediate COVID era, the way it happened a few years ago and we were locked down. And I think around that time Trump was coming into power. That must have been 2020.
He was sort of going out because I think it was 2016 when he was first.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But that last 4 years had a big impact on me.
Sure.
I now no longer feel that way and am back comfortably writing. But there was a period there, I think, where a lot of writers with COVID and with the lockdowns didn't know how to write about the world anymore. And maybe it's just taken a wee bit of time.
And potentially it felt a bit indulgent or trivial. I mean, some people went mad on the old interweb, and they were sort of, famous actors were reading the great works and things. And I think that was fine because they were in a position of comfort because they actually had the dosh, so they could spend the time. But I think the rest of us who were kind of still in that hard scrabble space, and more so for musicians and performing people, that was such a shock that things were so much out of your control. Yeah. That I think a lot of people actually went the other way. They didn't get creative at all. They got writer's block or whatever. And also you would have been kind of homeschooling a bit too, wouldn't you?
Yeah, very busy with the kids. And also I just had that book published, and there's always a period after that where I don't write at all, usually for a year.
Sure.
I just can't be bothered.
Yeah.
Because it's so intense, that sort of lead-up period to getting a book completely finished. But yeah, at the moment I'm just really plodding along with this project.
So let's kind of delve into that. I mean, you work, you've got 3 boys, your wife's got a busy career. How and when and what is your process? Is it sort of snatches of time, or how do you do it?
If I can get an hour or 2 in the morning, that's good. Yeah, I have.
Are you talking early morning?
Once the kids have gone to school, so I drop them off at 8:30, and then there's a few hours there where I can get some stuff done. But it's not. I'm not writing as much as I would like to, but that's the case for most people.
Ever?
Yeah. That's the great thing about the residency. It's just 4 days of writing.
Right. Yeah. So it's a focus thing. You go in there with an agenda and you don't come out. Yeah.
And what I do sometimes is arrange with my wife to have a few days in Christchurch or somewhere like that where I can try and get a burst done.
So you're quite a private person, or that's been my kind of impression of knowing you slightly. I never see you at events or book launches, or that's kind of not your bag. How do you connect with other? Who are your first readers? Where's your creative tribe? How do you? Because we all need them to.
We do. I agree. I have a group of friends who are all writers, and we meet up via Zoom once a month for a couple of hours where we just chat about the work we've been doing. Sometimes we share a little bit of work. We talk about the books we've been reading. We offer each other support and congratulations if things have gone well. And I also have a close relationship with 2 of those guys with whom we share work and they give me feedback.
Right.
And there's other people who I did my masters with many years ago, and we also stay in touch via email.
I think doing that creative writing masters at Vic seemed to be a pivotal thing for you. Did it push you into the professional space, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, yes, it did. It pushed me to a point where I could confidently finish a story, rewrite it, submit it for publication. I guess it sort of pushed me on maybe 5 years, 10 years from the rate that I was slowly plodding away at, because it was a year of very intense writing. I didn't work. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a girlfriend. I really didn't have friends. I just lived in a flat in Brooklyn and Wellington, and went down to the university every day and worked really, really hard with excellent people around me giving me advice and help. So it was just like a boot camp.
So that became your foundation, and when those other things did happen for you, life things of, getting married, having kids, all that sort of thing, you still felt that you could pull that through?
Yes. Yeah, I had that sort of basic understanding of craft, and also it gave me a lot of drive and ambition to stick at it, to believe I could do it, to believe that it was a worthwhile thing to do. And I got some money afterwards. It really propelled me along. Yeah.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, let's hope, and I'm sure it will, that you'll have the room service menu right beside you when you're writing at the Surrey. And, congratulations again on getting that residency. Some other people were lucky too, but I know that they had a lot of applicants. Then they did a shortlist, which must have been hell, actually, because, it's one thing to be on the shortlist, but you're still on tenterhooks until it comes through. That sounds like another really brilliant kickstart for you, Breton, and we absolutely look forward to seeing the results in due course. So thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks, Beverly. Thank you.
And just a footnote there, all of Breton's 3 collections of short stories, if you wanted to check them out, they are available through Victoria University's Te Herenga Waka Press. Now, just as Breton was leaving off air, I asked him to pick a New Zealand music track for us, and which I'm about to play shortly. And interestingly enough, he picked something very dear to our hearts, which is the local band, the Broken Heart Breakers. Now, it turns out that Breton went to school with John Howe. Of course, I know Rachel, also in the band, and we've got our own station connection very closely here with Jeff Harford, who drums on the track we're about to play. So here is the Broken Heart Breakers with All Looking Up.
Another mountain.
What do you want to be when you grow up? They say you are what you read, and the university bookshop can help you be whoever you want to be. Do you want to be an athlete? Then sit down with an inspiring sports biography. Do you fancy yourself as a detective? We have a grisly lineup of murder mysteries waiting just for you. Do you aspire to be the world's greatest chef? We have cookbooks to tantalise your taste buds. Do you want to celebrate your inner child? Play up in our fabulous children's room. The University Bookshop, helping you decide what you want to be when you grow up.
So I'm just going to tell you about a couple of things that are going on around town while we wait for my next guest to arrive. One of the first things is that the University Bookshop has got so many events at the moment that it's quite hard for me or anyone else to keep up. So I'd like to suggest that if you do want to get ahead of the game and know about launches and other events there coming up ahead of time, couple of ways you can do it. One is to follow their Facebook page, and the other is to send a quick email to events@unibox.co.nz, and that will mean that you'll get on the mailing list. So that's a great way to get across some of the events that are happening around town. Of course, there's other things like Talia Marshall reading tonight at the Octagon Poetry Collective. There's Emma Neal's book launch of her next book of poetry coming up, and something else that I thought was really interesting, and I've been meaning to mention it, and it also ties in with the fact that Armistice Day was, this week, and that is the audio book of Archibald Baxter's incredible memoir, We Will Not Cease. Now, most of you will know that it's about his journey as a conscientious objector in the First World War, and it's narrated by a terrific local actor, Peter Hayden, and it's now available on Audiobooks NZ. Most of you will also know that the Peace Garden down at the corner of George and Albany Street has got a specifically commissioned sculpture representing what Archibald Baxter went through, and it's called Field Punishment Number 1, and it is the terrible thing of when his arms were tied behind his back and he was made to sort of stand out all day in the hot sun near the trenches. So that is called his book, well worth a read. We Will Not Cease is narrated by Peter Hayden. Now, we're just going to take another short musical break, and this was actually the pick of my next guest. And it is a really fabulous, another upbeat track, actually. It's interesting because we're talking about hapless male characters, and yet both my guests have chosen very upbeat tracks. So this is the Babysitter's Circus and their lovely track called Everything's Gonna Be All Right. Well, I'm sorry, folks. I've been waiting here for my next guest, who's a Rob Foote, who's an illustrator and author about his really fantastic children's book called Samples from the Lab. And I'm not quite sure what's happened, but unfortunately he hasn't kind of arrived in the studio, so we're going to have to postpone that interview and do it next month instead, and we'll be giving away a copy of his book then too as well, so do tune in next month. But meanwhile, I'm afraid that means it's going to be a short show this month. Thanks very much for listening. Please keep doing that. We love it. And likewise, keep reading and keep writing. So, bye for now.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.